Hello and welcome to a Grapes and Greens wine snippet. Luke, today I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions that I get asked a lot by golfers when I go to their houses or when I go to golf clubs, or actually from staff who are a little bit unsure about glasses, bottles, how to open, decant, all that kind of stuff. So can you just run us through, firstly, what have we got today? What are the wines you've chosen to open and
completely.
look at?
Our red wine today from Domaine Girasol, it's a Rhone blend, so GSM blend, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre. Very classic. It's got some age to it though. I believe this is 2018. Where we are based in the Rhone, really hot, quite an arid climate at times as well. And so what you do tend to get is some of the wines that are produced with a slightly higher alcohol, slightly higher acidity and more body tend to lose colour, full colour a little bit faster. So this one's spitting quite a lot of sediment, which is why I chose next. We'll chat a bit about decanting as well.
Okay.
And then our white wine is from the Red Mountain American viticultural area over in America, from one of our producers called Hedges, so Hedges Family Estate, who've been over there and are the pioneers of biodynamic sustainable viticulture over in the States as well. It's a Leblanc, so it's made with, I believe, 100% Marsanne, so a variety, again, originating from France. Really nice, great, easy drinking wine with some complexity. And so we'll talk about the glasses and service of that wine as well in a little bit.
Amazing. So why is generally the red wine's glasses a little bit bigger than the white wine glasses?
Yeah, so with red wines, we tend to have a slightly, what we'd call a larger bowl. Different areas of the glasses are, you've got your base, your stem, the bowl here, and then you lead up to the mouth area, or where you'd sip the wine from, essentially. You'll tend to find that with a red wine glass, the bowl is slightly bigger. That's because we've got to consider the aromas, the wine characteristics, and just the actual character of the wine itself. Red wine, obviously produced in a method of having grape skin fermentation, and is always more full, more bodied, more complex, because you're extracting phenolics from the grape rather than just pressing for the free run juice like a white wine. Therefore, we've got more complexity, potentially more going on in a red wine. And traditionally, we choose to have a bigger bowl so that we're able to give the wine more space to breathe, more room to encompass or incorporate with the rest of the wine, and also a slightly nicer drinking experience. What we find when we move to a slightly smaller glass, or a glass that's really quite thin, is that we remove ourselves from the drinking experience because the wine doesn't have enough time to breathe, a space to air, and also when you do take a whiff of the air, it's either going to be really concentrated because you've got this narrow of a gap to put your nose in to smell through, or it's almost going to not be there because the aromas haven't had time to reach up through the glass. So that's why we go with a bigger bowl generally for, well, I wouldn't say red wines in particular, but a bigger bowl for more complex and deep wines. And we can use a smaller, more sort of white wine-esque bowl for a white wine or a less complex wine that is a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah, you get more in that one, do you? You just like, is that another reason?
Yeah, well, obviously, when it comes to red wine, the more the better, right? No, I joke. Yeah, absolutely. You can get a little bit more in it as well. We tend to do red wine pourings of around 175 ml, whereas white wine, especially sparklings, are normally served.
If you got that off tap, it was that part of the degree where you kind of had to get it to 175.
Yeah, it was. Actually, no, not the degree, but when I was in bartending and mixology, you always judged, and obviously being a sommelier of the Michelin star, you can't pull out your little measuring jig and pour it into the bowl. So you get pretty good at hand pouring and pouring to either 175 ml, 250 ml, or 125 ml. So, and you do the same as a bartender, 50 ml and 25 ml for shots. So
very cool. This is the bit that most blokes hate. They have a beautiful bottle of wine, got the family or friends round, and now you've got to open it. And it's probably, you've cost them a bit of money. You've got the waiter's friend.
I do.
And all you hope is not caught, it doesn't split, and everybody's looking at you. So
absolutely.
How do you do this?
How do you do it? Really simple. You can break it down into various different steps. First step, get the film off. Second step, get the cork out. Third step, pour. So relatively easy.
Well, that's easy said and done.
Easy said than done. Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at a bottle of wine, we normally have what we call the film or the cap. It's a piece of protective material that went on top of the wine to be able to seal the cork into the bottle, prevent any what we call external sort of biohazards that can potentially get up there, get through there, seep through the cork and get into the wine. And it also used to be a way to secure wine back in the old days. They used to do it with lead. They realized very quickly that lead isn't very good for you, so why have we been putting it on our wines throughout history? So now we have either metal, aluminium or steel caps or plastic synthetics. And I think the one that we've got here is a mix of metal and plastic. The one here is metal, and we've got a couple in the warehouse that are just plastic. And there's a big debate where you cut the foil on a wine.
Yeah.
Lots of people like to do it out here. Lots of people like to do it out here. Some people, especially the French, you see them just taking the entire foil off.
Okay.
It really doesn't matter.
Right.
You can do it however way, shape, or form. Me personally, because I've got, grew up with, well, not grew up with it, but worked in Michelin's where speed is of the essence and time of the essence. Yeah. It's easier to lock the blade,
the ridge there,
screw under the ridge, rather than looking over the ridge. So I just go there, and then all we're looking to do is make a nice clean shave, so you can sort of twist that top section around a little bit.
Okay, cool.
And then you can either pull it off there if it comes off, or do a small side insert like that, stick it under, and that's your wine cap removed.
You made that look very easy.
I've done it a few times. And there you go. So foil's off, and you got the cork there. Then we're just going to go in with the screw really easily, make it nice and simple. Some corks will be more tough than others. It's not a sign that your wine is bad or faulty. It's purely down to the composition of the cork. Okay. Some corks are going to be completely natural, like both of these wines. Some corks are going to be what we call corks, which is a synthetic mixture. Yeah. And some corks will be completely synthetic.
I have seen some corks, a glass cork.
Yeah, you can get glass cork these days, glass stoppers, and one of our producers is doing sort of like recycled plastic bullets, which is really interesting. Okay. Go in there, and obviously no harm to the wine, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And so we're going to want to put...
How deep did you go?
Yeah.
There's that bit. So right down to the base, really, is it?
Almost, yeah. It depends on how familiar you like doing it and what you do it. It really doesn't matter too much. The rule of thumb is the more of the hexagon spiral that you get inside the cork, theoretically, the easier it should be to pull out.
Okay.
You want to be careful, especially if you're opening slightly older wines, that you're putting in the screw relatively deep. Otherwise, what you do...
And it should be in the middle.
In the middle, as in the middle as possible.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what you'll look at doing is you'll pull out the cork, and because it's degraded, you're going to snap the cork in half or only pull out half.
I've seen that happen a lot, where you suddenly go like, oh my God, that cost a fortune.
Yeah, exactly. And then you start worrying.
You've got these cork floating around with the other ones complete wire.
Yeah, it does suck sometimes. Sometimes it's the way of wine, way of the industry, way of the world. It's not going to affect your wine experience too much. So if it does fall into the wine, don't worry, you can always sieve it out. It's all fine. So then once we've got that in, normally corkscrews have what we call a two-step. First step is going to be to pull the initial part of the cork out. And the second step is what you go on to afterwards to pull the final part.
Kind of leverage.
We always pull the handle towards us, lean this down so that we find that... Am I doing it the right way around? Yeah. We find that first step there.
Yep.
Pull it up and out until we reach the maximum height here.
Okay.
And then we can reposition the corkscrew to find that second step there, pull it out and out. In service for Michelin's, in service for high-end, sometimes they like to show off and sort of don't pop it. Or do pop it.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. And lots of people like to just pull it out, pop it. It doesn't matter. Just careful if you do pull it out. Sometimes the wine, because of the vacuum that's caused in there, will splash out with you. Other people like to pull it out and then do a little sort of twist it until you get the cork out.
Okay.
And so there you go. That's your cork, and that's your bottle of wine. And theoretically, you could sit and drink.
That's a bit vinegary. Is that all right?
Yeah. So this, like I said, it's a wine that's been sat for quite a while. Yeah. It is actually 2015, not a 2018. Okay. And it's chucked a lot of sediment. So what we have here is a cork that has been partially seeped, and does have a little bit of sediment lying on its cork face as well, which is absolutely fine. Okay. That means it's been stored in the proper, and then it's been allowed to settle. And it's actually, you can sort of see it's slightly...
Does it smell?
Is it like adjacent?
Yeah.
It smell. Okay. So when you're looking out for...
It doesn't smell rotten or whatever, so it just feels... It feels really fresh.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, it smells lovely. You'll be able to recognise if your wine is off pretty quickly if you've got a good nose, by the smell of the cork. Yeah. If it smells like it's wine, or if it smells a little bit sort of like old cork, old cellar sort of smell, then you're most of the time fine. Yep. You start to worry when your cork starts smelling of wet cardboard, damp cardboard, or moss, or just unpleasant characteristics. That's when you should be slightly worried. But don't always don't judge the wine on the cork, because the corks can vary. Wine normally sits a little bit more stable than the corks. So we'll put that aside for a sec. And now on to the good bit. So yeah, as you can see,
Would you normally decant this wine or not?
I would.
You would, okay.
So knowing what this wine is, knowing that it's going to spit up a lot of sediment, and knowing what vintage it's from and where.
How much is this wine, for example? How much it is?
This one I think sits around 23, 24.
That's at retail. So in a restaurant, sort of 60.
Yeah, you're looking at 60, 70 pounds.
So a nice bottle of wine for dinner for two.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dinner for two, bottle of wine. It's very much a gastronomic, very bold, quite powerful wine. So go excellent with something like roast beef, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Okay.
And yeah, a great wine, but knowing the wine and understanding the wine, I would definitely look at decanting.
Is there a sort of a cutoff where you would and you wouldn't decant a wine?
Yeah, completely. If a wine is, produced in a method of being quite a young drinking wine, you'd potentially look at not decanting it, even if it's older, sort of forebearers have been decanted. If it's young, you don't necessarily need to decant it. Some of the young Burgundies that we see, we often associate Burgundy and Bordeaux with decanting wines. Some of the younger ones we don't even bother decanting.
Okay.
The wine experience is the same, and if you're going to drink it the same amount of time as you would decanting it, sometimes it is the same result. Some people do like to decant it for the show, for the theatre, though.
Okay.
And yeah, some older wines, I'd say, as a rule of thumb, normally when you start reaching the 10, 15, 20 mark, depending again on the wine itself, potentially start to look at decanting it, purely because you're going to find some sediment. The sediment has fallen out of the wine, and you don't want that to take away from the wine drinking experience.
Yeah.
Okay. So there we are. So
over to you.
Over to the decanting. So often quite a daunting task, but you can make it really, really easy. There are so many different ways that you can do it. You can do it like the proper French traditional people do it. Get a flame underneath.
Yeah, I was going to say, get the candle out.
Yeah. Bottle. At its core, decanting a wine is just putting this from point A into point B. And all we're trying to do here is allow the wine some time to breathe and to rest on essentially itself, so that your drinking experience moving forward is a little bit nicer, a little bit easier, and more complex and more gastronomic, more enjoyable, if you like. So what we look to do is, because we've got what we call an ullage, a space at the top of the bottle, we can mess around with that a little bit back and forth. So you've got some space to work with. Okay. If your wine is filled right to the top, I'd be concerned, and I'd potentially look at sending it back. It shouldn't be, because by legality it's supposed to have either. Yeah. And then all we're going to do is match the angle of the bottle with the angle of decanter. Perfect. Just so that we're creating the most amount of surface area here for us to hit, so that we're not spilling it everywhere else.
Okay.
And then we go in. Start pouring nice and slowly, just onto the lip there. We don't want
really
to pour,
dark, isn't it? Yeah, really dark wine. Yeah.
We don't want to pour right into the centre. Otherwise, we might agitate the wine too much.
Okay, so you're pouring it down the stem as such.
Yeah, you pour it down the neck of the decanter.
Yeah.
And pouring it nice and slowly, nice and controlled speed ensures that if there is a sediment, like there will be with this wine, it's hopefully getting caught in the neck of the bottle itself as it bursts through. Nice and easy. And then as we get towards the end of the bottle, starting to tilt a little bit more. Something that's really, really important is that we're not pouring out the ends of the bottle here. On a normal wine, on a young wine, you can pour out the ends, but I'm going to stop just about there.
Okay.
Because I know that there's quite a lot of sediment in this wine.
Yeah.
And because I've been pouring it for about 30 seconds, the sediment has started to mix with the liquid inside as well. And that's kicked up the sediment. And so the last bits in here, some people call it the dregs, it's my arbitrary term for it. But the last little bits might have quite a lot of sediment in it. Okay. Actually, if I pour it into another glass, which I might do, you'll see that it's really deep and laden with sediment. And so you can keep that last little bit in the bottle there. Some people like to pour it out and then sieve it. Some people just keep it in the bottle. But we keep that there so that when we're drinking this wine, it should be absolutely fine. It shouldn't be an issue with it. If you do want the last little bits, grab a sieve from the kitchen in the baking drawer. Yeah, and go to town.
That. Okay. Oh, it's the doggy bag, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there you go. There's our wine. There's our decanted wine, and in here it should be really nice and clear. And we'll do a bit of a clear test as well. When you're holding a decanter, there is a couple of ways that you can do it professionally. Right. But I always say just hold it how you feel comfortable. Otherwise, you might drop it, and there's nothing worse than dropping a decanter of wine. So
especially when somebody else is paying for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
There we go.
Wow. That smells amazing.
Yeah, so
it's really deep. Really deep, yeah. I'm going to use the word. I was like, it's deep.
Yeah, and if you have a sort of a quick say is if you pull the decanter to one side, you'll normally see sediment on the NT area.
Yeah.
None here. I'm cooking none here properly.
Yeah.
So that's a well decanted wine.
And normally, I mean, we've just taken it literally from the warehouse.
Yeah.
How long would you maybe have opened this wine before serving, or would you decant it straight away after opening and then let it breathe and wait?
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
That's the trick. You can do what we call a decant at the table, which is where you're decanting essentially for immediate consumption.
Yeah.
So you're looking at that really prime time for the wine, so that when you decant it, it's already going to start breathing and it's going to be in its peak right as you decant it.
Okay.
But for some wines like this, it's really, really deep. For really old Burgundies or Bordeaux, I'd recommend decanting and leaving to rest for up to 30 minutes is the minimum normally, and then it can go all the way. I mean, I've opened a wine 8 hours prior when I was at Sorrel for somebody.
Okay.
But it's really down to your preference. The longer you leave a wine open, the more contact it gets with the air, and therefore the faster it's going to deteriorate. Okay. When I say deteriorate, it's not going to taste any worse, but you're going to start to lose that concentration, the flavour profiles, and so on and so on. So you want to find a perfect spot for this. So for this wine, a Rhone Valley wine, 2015, and sitting, I think, about 14%. There you go, 14% ABV.
Yeah.
Quite punchy and already quite deep, quite dark for being now 10 years old. I'd let this sit for probably about an hour and a half, an hour before opening, before drinking, sorry. And let that sit in the decanter, let that mellow out. There you go, you get that lovely sort of dark,
Really vegetable.
cherry.
That's quite vegetably,
Yeah, so it's a classic.
Cherries a little bit, and then but more of kind of that real earthy, vegetable-y kind of feel.
Very classic from the region.
Yeah,
you got a lot of herbal characteristics going in there, and it does.
And an aftertaste that lingers for quite a long time, sort of punchy, and then it's just there's not a lot of tannin. Mm. It just feels like. And maybe just explain what tannin is, because, bad wine is lots of tannin. It feels like cotton wool in your mouth.
Yeah. So when we talk about tannins, tannin is a phenolic compound. You actually find tannins in your tea as well, which is why sometimes when you sip your tea, if it's black, if it's really quite
builder's tea,
extractive builder's tea, there you go, the proper rough and ready stuff. You often find yourself sort of going, it's really sticky on the gums, right? That is tannic. So what tannins does is it binds some of the molecules inside your gums, extracts the moisture from those molecules, and therefore you feel that dry characteristic. It is a characteristic that comes from the skins and the seeds of a grape. So naturally, when we're making a red wine and we're talking about skin contact through grapes and through the maceration, you're going to get some of that, and you're going to get the structure through. With a white wine, less so much, because we're pressing the grape just to get the juice, not necessarily to get the phenolic compounds. Okay. So that's why in this wine, it is quite tannic. It is quite full, but what we've helped with that is by decanting it, is you're going to mellow down those tannins.
And if that had been in there for an hour and a half, it would have been smoother?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it would smooth out really nice and easily. Be really enjoyable. And when we do talk about tannins professionally, we talk about different types of tannins. You can have really rough tannins, really green tannins, very vegetal tannins, but you can also have soft, silky, melting tannins. And so when you're tasting this wine, for me, like you said, it's a really enjoyable tannic structure. It's quite melty, quite soft, and quite silky. Whereas if you take some of the really rough Bordeaux from En Primeur, for example, their tannic structure is going to be through the roof, really rough, because they're looking at the long aging game, not the short aging game.
A bit like Italian reserves as well, I suppose. They can go on for 30 years before they're actually perfect.
Completely. And so when you taste a wine when it's really, really young and in its infancy, that has been made to be drunk a little bit further down the line, your structure is so key and so vital to producing the wine that you want to produce.
Okay.
You're going to have to boost things up so that you're aiming for that 30-year mark. It will tone down. And it's almost like a guessing game. It's like the longest gamble of your life. You put a wine down in the cellar, hopefully it'll be good in 30 years.
Yeah. Not really good. Okay. For me, I think this needs to go with food.
Absolutely.
I'm not really looking at this, squaffing it on the terrace after a round of golf.
No.
I'd be definitely thinking this is a food wine.
Yeah. No, completely. When it comes to food and red wines, so we've got a Rhone one here. Quite a deep, quite a bold Rhone. It's my style of Rhone. And I always enjoy a classic roast. Sounds bad because it's a French wine, but why not? A lovely cut of roast beef. Lamb as well would work really nicely. Chicken, Can potentially lead in some of the game animals as well. Venison, maybe. You've got a really nice meaty piece. And always have something accompanying with that. You need some kind of starch on the plate there. So potatoes, roasted potatoes. What I've often found, weirdly, is quite a nice pairing is Dauphinoise potatoes. You've got the creaminess and juiciness of the Dauphinoise, and then the red wine helps add a sort of new level of fruity characteristic to those potatoes.
That strong cheese flavour cutting through it. Yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the next pairing I'd go to is cheese board. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, big time.
That smooth stuff, really easy drinking, and that always helps out with a cheese board as well.
Really interesting. Should we move on to the white wine?
Yeah, we can do. Are we opening the white wine?
Why not?
Okie dokie. Let me grab the... Open that. Cool, so we'll sideline the red for a little bit and talk white wine. So when it comes to white wine, the story is a little different. You do find some places, some venues, some winemakers who suggest that you should decant their white wine purely because it is so complex, so full and so interesting that they really want you to get the full expression of the white wine. Here we're not going to though. We're going to let the wine do its talking in the glass, and we're going to do what I like to call keeping the wine active in the glass as well, which means that we're moving it about, so we're getting the effects of a decanter at an increased rate, an accelerated rate, so that we can still enjoy the full characteristics of the wine without having the need to decant it, if you like. So as I mentioned, an American wine. Americans coming up in the wine world, which is really nice to see. Some people absolutely hate it.
We've highlighted Hedges a couple of times on the podcast. We did one with Lee Dixon, and that was a Syrah, and he really enjoyed it. You know, again, comes back to that point about price. You know, he brought a beautiful 1976 Bordeaux, beautiful. I think it was a lot of money. He said it was certainly a lot more than the £36 Syrah, but actually, when we tried the Syrah, it was from Hedges. He really enjoyed it, and again, I always think if you're going to do a blind tasting, you know, can you really tell the difference between what you've paid for this and what you paid for this, and what do you enjoy?
Yeah,
great question. When it hits the taste bud, is it for you or is it not for you?
Absolutely. I've always said people who used to come into the restaurant and really unsure about the wines, always said to them, you drink what you enjoy drinking, because I don't want to ruin the experience for you by putting something on the table that you might not drink. And that's such a key important part of wine drinking, is drink what you like.
But I think also, certainly like with a white wine, you know, there's a lot of people that I've met throughout the years go, I hate Chardonnay, don't give me a Chardonnay. And yet they need to be educated, because not all Chardonnay tastes exactly the same.
Yeah, we had a really bad boom of ABC, right? And about Chardonnay. The Americans decided to put a little bit too much oak in it and sort of ruined it. But it's coming back to the forefront now, massively. And there's some unbelievable Chardonnays in the market, and from America as well. And one of my favourite wines of all time is an American Chardonnay that is oaky, but it's a perfect. And what's that one? It's a wine called Grand Lorraine. So it's from California, I believe, and it's done by a producer who only produces about 18,000 bottles a year. We used to have it at Sorrel, and it was one of the first wines that I got introduced to for wine flighting. And we used to do it with some Orkney scallops, with a langoustine lobster sauce, all of the accompaniments, caviar and everything like that. And it was the most amazing pairing, I think, that I've almost ever tried. It was unbelievable.
Fantastic.
Cool. Same story again. White wine, we're not going to decant this one, and we're just going to pop it.
You would never decant a white wine?
Not necessarily. Not unless you really wanted to do something flashy, which is what we call flash decanting.
Okay.
Which is where you'd get a decanter, you'd actually literally turn the bottle upside down, push it all into the decanter, and that is to give it a very quick injection of oxygen.
Okay.
Let the wine breathe. So it's almost like you're chucking 3 hours of aging at it.
Okay. Would you open this before dinner or whatever, or would you just open and serve?
I just open and serve this. The aim of this is to enjoy it.
And is that the same across all white wine? You would basically open and serve? Yeah. Even the classic Burgundies or...
The classic Burgundies I like to leave open a little bit, purely because you wouldn't necessarily be able to enjoy them as much without that slight added opening time as well.
Okay.
And especially if we're sat in the golf club, for example, we don't have all day, unfortunately, to sit around and drink wine. And when you've got something like an old classic Burgundy, you want to be able to enjoy it a little bit more.
But this is a great colour.
Oh yeah. This is
This is like golden.
so this, harking from
It's like syrup.
it is, yeah. It's got a really deep color. It's a characteristic of Marsanne, but also a characteristic of the grape variety and the aging technique that they've used. It's quite an old wine. As we age white wines and go older and older, the color starts deepening, whereas with red wines, the color starts lightening.
I haven't had that before. And that is,
First time for everything.
wow.
It's not a traditional wine. It's really quite a unique wine, and it's a testament to the winemaking, to the growing, and to the estate to produce a wine of that quality. Normally you get this in a blend, so Marsanne and Roussanne, because you're looking at both characteristics, both grape varieties, to balance out each other to find a middle ground. And so a mark of a great winemaker is when they produce a single varietal from those two grape varieties.
Is this about perfect for drinking now, 2021?
Yeah. This is prime time for this wine. Sat in the bottle for 4 years now. It's had some oak, some mallow, regular fermentation with a little bit of skin contact, which is why you've got that really deep and developed characteristic. And it's the perfect time to do it. Anything older than this, I'd be worried that the wine would start to develop a little bit too far, start losing its nice structure and body and balance, and therefore moving a little bit into the...
Usually for white wines, it's usually much younger, isn't it? It's usually sort of 1 or 2 years that you're looking at.
Yeah. White wines, we're looking, especially with the modern market and the modern age of drinking and the wine trends that are going around at the moment, we're looking 1 to 2 years max consumption. But as we move up the years, as we move up the complexity of a wine, people are starting to target certain years. So this wine, for example, would have been targeted within the last 2 years to be drunk. Whereas other wines in the warehouse that are white wines, some in the cellar at home, I've targeted like 10 years. So they're from 2005 or 2006. Wow. And that's really aimed at the characteristic of the wine. It's also my knowledge and understanding of the wine itself and where it's been through and why it's been produced that way. But this wine's drinking sensationally at the moment, actually really, really sensationally.
One last thing. Was it really interesting that we went to the Frey champagne supplier, producer, this is say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And their 20th anniversary lunch, and they served champagne in a wine glass rather than the flute. What was their reason for doing that?
So when you get a certain amount of champagnes, there's a couple of different categories that you can sort of broadly characterize champagne in. You've got your classic champagne, which is stuff like your Taittinger, your Moët Chandon, Laurent Perrier. These are very classic styles that are at their entry level meant to be drunk there and then. And so people enjoy the theatre of having a flute. It's different to all of the other wine glasses, so it's already a point of differentiation. It's an experience, and people have sort of the last 10, 15, 20 years gravitated towards using flutes because that's what everybody does. And the flute is designed to keep the bubbles within the wine, within the champagne, so that when you're drinking it, you get that bubbly sensation. That's why a lot of Prosecco is drunk in flutes as well, and Cava and Pet Nat and all this kind of stuff. When we're talking about gastronomic champagnes, which is the category that Frey fall into, we're talking about that champagne style that is meant to be aged for 10 years. It's meant to be a long aging process. It's very complex. It's not like a traditional champagne that you buy off the supermarket shelf. And as a result, we want to treat it with a slightly more respect than a regular wine, in which case we would use a white wine glass or even a red wine glass sometimes, which is crazy. Wow. And the aim is because the winemaking is good enough, I'm not worried about losing the bubbles, because the bubbles to me aren't the defining factor of the wine. It's the flavour profile and the flavour complexity. So it's like if we put an oak Chardonnay into a bigger glass, you're going to appreciate it more because it's got more room to breathe, more room to display its complexity. We're doing exactly the same with champagne and giving it more breathing room, more space. This wine has been in a bottle for 10 years, and you want to put it into a small glass like that and keep it compact and tight and locked away. No, let's let it breathe, let it express itself, and you get the full expression of the wine that way.
Fantastic. Luke, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vic. It's been a pleasure.
Another insight from Grapes and Greens. Hope you enjoyed it. Look out for the next one.
Thank you.
It's all right, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was good.
Don't get to drink that wine a lot. It's unbelievable.